you could just stop when your laser dot shines right there on the outside if you set it up for a 1/4 inch wall thickness or difference between the cutter and the laser, okay? So this would be your little cutter. There's your swivel tip, here's your boring bar, and you've set your laser for 1/4 inch wall thickness. That makes sense? So everywhere you go in there, as soon as that laser dot is right here, it's going to start out like right here somewhere. It'll migrate as you cut, and when it's right there and just starts shining on the dirt, that's it. Stop. You're at the wall thickness you've set. So anytime you disturb this thing, take it out to sharpen it, you've got to reset your 1/4 inch. And OB used a little line on a credit card with an ink pen to reset his. And an upright and an arm that holds the laser that shoots the red dot down. Okay? So this is the upright. This is going to be this piece right here, and it's got a round hole in it that slips right over top this bar, hopefully. 1 inch hole, so it should be a fairly snug fit. Should go right over it. And then I'm going to put this between centers on the lathe, one here and one here. And I'm going to turn that down from being square. And I'm going to end up at the top section. It'll have a little round top. It'll have a shoulder down here where it goes into being square. And the bar will pass through like that. It'll have a little split right here with a bolt that'll tighten that split up on the bar so it remains vertical. It doesn't turn on the bar. Okay? So this is the turning I'm going to do. I'm starting out with a square piece of wood like that. So that's what I'm doing in the other room. I'm just going to turn this thing. So this will be the top. It'll be slightly domed. And this is a shoulder where it goes from being square to round, and then this will be round. Now when you do this, I find it helpful with kids to take the bit that you're going to use for this round portion up in here and drill a hole through a piece of scrap. And then when you're turning this, you try that on. And that way, if your dowel is not uniform, you can do a little sanding where it's too tight for this to slide. So that's a really good thing for kids, especially on their stool legs. They need to get that tenon, nice, consistent. So if you just bore a hole, I'll be using this as a gauge to make sure it slides.
Are you teaching them to use a skew or what?
No, it's pretty much a rough and gouge and parting tool is what they're using. And they can use a skew if they want to, and I'll demo that to them.
Skew is the best tool for
leveling. It is. Yes, it is. So this thing is the only part that really needs turned. And it's got a hole for the bolt that squeezes and tightens it on the rod right through here. You pre-drill that hole. It's got a bolt. And then you pre-drill this hole, and then you put it between centers and turn it. And then you make this slit right here so that when you tighten this bolt, it can squeeze onto the round rod. This slit's made with a bandsaw. And I'll do that in the other room after I turn it. I didn't want to do it now because the center would be in the split. So that's that part, okay? Now, why is this the height it is?
Going to the center.
To accommodate your diameter.
Get over the steady rest.
To get over top the piece you're working on. It's got to be tall enough, it's got to be up high enough in the air. So what if you're working on a vase like that? Your chuck's way back here, and you've got a steady rest, a bunch of wheels here, and you're going inside and hollowing that out. You want this laser up above your steady rest frame so it can shine down. So that's why I make them kind of tall. Okay? Sometimes the laser is right here, sometimes it's way up there, depending on the piece and if you have a steady or not. This is the piece then that once that's round will slip down over it to whatever height you put it at. So this allows rotation of the laser, and then this rod allows the laser to move in and out, and you can lock it. You can buy these at the hardware store for $5. They're the kind when your lawnmower handle folds over. These are just, they have a nut inside the plastic, and just buy a bolt. I use carriage bolts because once I tap them in there, they have that square on the back of the head and they won't turn. But by tightening this, it locks the beam where the beam won't move. And the same thing, it's split with a bandsaw, it's pre-drilled hole. And then to get that hole from round to square, I drill it round first, I go in with the bandsaw to make the slit, and I just bandsaw out the corners. And it becomes a square hole. If you have a mortising, they have a hollow chisel mortiser that bores square holes, you could use one of those. But at first when I made these, I used a round piece of dowel. The problem with that is the laser cannot be aimed straight down. You can get off a little. So then what I did is I split my round dowel and I put a thin piece of wood in it that lined up with the crack, and that helped. But it still was better with square. And so that locks it in, and the laser just sits in here. And I was just at Ace Hardware in St. Ignace. They sell the little lasers as cat toys. They're $3.99, they come with 4 batteries. And they have a little tiny button you press for the laser to come on. I use a clothespin and just put it on the button.
They don't last very long, though.
They don't last very long. So get a bunch of batteries, but
The vibration just...
yeah, but they're cheap, and you drill the right size hole, it just presses right in there. You can put a little hot melt around it, or epoxy.
Mine's, I plug it in the wall. It runs off the transformer.
Yeah, mine does too.
And so it's
If you happen to be
No
at
bad.
garage sales and you see skill saws for sale that have the laser line, the red line, those work great too. You just buy the skill saw and throw it away and steal the laser out of it and the transformer and the switch. It works great. But this would be my setup then for turning and up and down and in and out. That's as simple as it gets. And I sent pictures of this piece of wood to Charlie, and he'll post it. It's quite a lot of layout of where you drill this way and that way, and where it all works out. But if you keep this thing fairly short, then it's pretty much in line with the vertical post. It could be long, but you don't need it to be. Any questions on this? I don't want to bore you to death. It's pretty simple stuff, but if you do all your layout on here and pre-bore these holes and then split them on the bandsaw, then when you tighten these knobs up, it really grabs things. And I would use hardwood for this. This is maple, but ash would work fine, or other hardwoods. All right, ready for a demo out there? And I drilled, this is a 5/16 bolt, which is 10/32, so I drilled 11/32, so it'll slip in there nicely. And you can see where I had it in there, so when I pounded it in, it left a square for up here, so it doesn't turn. So I'll go back in that same way. And this just slides over the bar.
You got tape on the bar.
Piece of tape, huh? Wonder who did that. Probably that Jim Rutledge when he welded it. In case the welds failed, you know. I'm just kidding, Jim.
I don't think you're gonna get it all off.
You know, I'm not too worried about it. We don't have to go all the way on there, but we would normally run this probably all the way back till it hits here. But that's it. And just eyeball it for straight up and down. Nut on there. I bought one of the nuts that doesn't loosen. It's got the plastic inside of it. And just tighten it up.
You could use a thumb nut, right?
Yeah, you use a wing nut or
Wing
whatever
nut,
you
yeah.
want, but this should draw it in or it can't move. And this is our laser holder that sits on like that. And it's a nice snug fit. It can move up and down. And then this is our beam. Loosen that up. This comes on out.
Right there, on the table.
Okay. So here's our $3.99 cat toy from the hardware store. If you drill the right size hole, it just presses in there. And when you press it, you get a red dot. Okay? So I use a clothespin when it's on. And then we'll stick the cutter back in and answer Kate's question. How does this thing work? So with this in, and you have to remember that there's an Allen screw in there to lock it. And once you aim this where you're cutting, you can bring this device out. And if you set the laser dot, a little bit of rotation here. A bit more. Come up just a little bit. Wish I had brought that clothespin. Okay, can you see the difference
Yeah.
between the dot and the cutter? That's the wall thickness of the vessel. So when this laser, so if you were using this and you had your form in the chuck and you bored a Forstner bit hole in the middle to be able to stick this in there, what you're going to see is when you're near the middle where the Forstner bit hole is, you're going to get this. And as you cut out toward the outside, you'll reach a point where it just kisses the edge, like right there, you're at wall thickness. The dot will migrate from there outward until it just barely touches the edge of the form. That's the thickness you've set between the dot and the cutter. And it'll maintain that all the way in. Anytime you disturb this, you take this out to sharpen it or you re-aim it, you're going to have to reset this. And Lyle Jameson uses a business card with an ink line drawn 1/4 inch in from the edge of the business card, and he just puts the card up there and then sets the laser to the line on the card.
Okay.
So that when he disturbs this and puts it back in, he gets it the same.
Same way.
I just put it back inside my hollow form where I know I'm at 1/4 inch already, and I reset the laser to the hollow form, the part I've already done.
So does everybody here use this contraption?
I
do.
I use a camera. I'm probably the only
Yeah,
one who
you
uses a
said
camera.
Yeah.
I have the same contraption, but it's from here to the coffee pot long, and that big around, and about 300 pounds, and it can go from me to Gary deep, you know. So this setup, everybody can make this, right? This is not rocket science.
No,
Okay.
it's not rocket
And
science.
with these bars that are this size, you can safely go about 1 foot deep, maybe a little more, 15 inches with a small cutter. And for bigger bars, it'll go deeper. So your tool rest, you would want to keep your tool rest as close to your form as you could.
Right.
But you don't want to get it here where this is jumping on the rest. You know, you want to go back a little bit. But that's it. And this thing would be aimed accordingly.
Right.
You know, if you're cutting this way, you would aim a little more that way. If you're cutting in the bottom, it might be straight. slightly off.
And they pointed out before about keeping your bar level, and at about the
I've
same.
used the bar many times.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand how the laser was gonna help me understand
It
the
just
thickness.
helps to not have to keep calipering or fingering
Right.
the walls to get them fairly.
Gives you more confidence.
And you can go down with this setup, you can go down to about 1/8 of an inch thick. I don't know that I would do lampshades with it, because the cutter is more scraping than it is shear scraping. With the lampshade.
It all depends how much this is vibrating.
Yeah,
It's a 1-inch bar, it's gonna vibrate less than a 3/4 inch bar. But this whole contraption, all of it included, if it starts vibrating, then
yeah.
the laser starts jumping around.
Tom Jacobson had a little cloth bag with lead shot in it, and he hung it right on here to knock down the harmonics.
Yeah.
The
Dampen.
vibration.
Right.
And I think if you were to make this all out of hardwood, it'd be a little stiffer, it probably wouldn't vibrate as much as soft.
Mine's all steel.
It's all metal.
Yeah, it's all round, tubular.
Anyway, the reason for the height here is to get over your steady, the wheels and the hoop, that you can actually go right over top of it. Or you can duck under it if it's 4 wheels. If there's 2 wheels coming this way and 2 this way, you've got a space in the middle that you can push this right through inside the steady.
But you have this adjustment, so you
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah. So that's my demo today, pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
And on those pictures of this block of the layouts, Archie's gonna post. So, and that block could be longer, that's about as short as you can make them.